Hello everybody and welcome to Dynamic GT League's Expo Championship for Race 5 from Tokyo South Outer Loop. Let's take a quick look at the track map. 3.32 miles, 11 turns. We've got the pity party where there's a hairpin and the pits and the fuzz zone in effect here. Tricky chicane. Okay, let's take a look at the current championship standings. Demon R leading the way on 70 points. Steve F1, 5 behind him in second place. Then we've got Twilight in third, 3 ahead of SGP in fourth, who's a few ahead of Jason in fifth. Then we've got Conrad in sixth, and Formula Gary and David Harp tied in seventh, both on 34 points. Rich Blues is in ninth place on 32. While we've got Bunsell in 10th place on 29 points, and he's 3 ahead of Jimmy in 11th, who is 4 ahead of Hay in 12th, and then 4 ahead of SRI in 13th. And then we've got Mitch on 10 still, with Fluffy on 7 still, and Art Pal also on 0. Art Pal, Fluffy, Mitch, Hay not able to race today, which is a bit of a shame. So let's take a look at the current qualifying result for race 5, and on pole position we've got DGT League SGP with a 147.858, 0.176 behind him is Demon R, starting on the front row once again. Twilight, good qualifying for him, started on row 2 alongside Steve F1, but just ahead of him. Row 3 we've got SRI, who pips Dave the Harp for 5th and 6th place, and then we've got Conrad in 7th place on row 4, he'll line up alongside Jason. On row 5 we've got Formula Gary in 9th place, Jimmy in 10th place, and then we've got Bunsell in 11th and Ridge Blues in 12th. As I mentioned, a few drivers missing today, which is always a bit of a shame. Hopefully they'll be able to return before the end of the championship, because we've got a few interesting circuits coming along. What I will say quickly is check out the DGT merch, check the link in the description. Have a good one, and let's hand over to our commentators. So here we go then, Tokyo South Outer Loop. I was going to do that in a rather Japanese accent, but I forgot. And with me on commentary is Raymond. How are you, Raymond?
I'm doing very good.
Good. SGP's helmet's different, and away they go. That's a new start to the race. I'll not use that.
You tried to zoom in on it again.
I think you might.
I had problems with that one, didn't it?
Demon R's taken the lead of the race in the kink before turn 1. Driver's going to have to be careful into 1 though, because the tyres are stone cold, and SGP's coming back at Demon R straight away into the Wigglies. These Wigglies are going to need... actually, no, I was given a name for these corners and I completely forgot about it. Oh dear. Yeah, no. Well, you know, there's Maggots and Beckett's.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's Worms and Ranganathans. Yeah. Worms and for anyone that doesn't know, fine. Google it, work it out. Demon Osri taking the lead in Pity Party Airpin. And we call it a pity party because I'm pretty sure we'll see a lot of people dancing around. SGP's retaken the lead. There's a lot of action going on here, Ray, on the first lap.
Yeah, SGP Demon R having a good battle, but to go watch, I've got Steve F1 and Twilight up there again.
Yeah,
behind them.
They've already got a bit of a gap as well to Conrad in 5th place, but Conrad, we know, unfortunately hasn't been able to practice, but he's got SRI all over his gearbox as they make their way through the tunnels, flat out through there. If you're side by side, it might not be as we head towards the right-hander before the fuzz, and they're still 2 by 2. But if you don't know what the fuzz is, it's the fuck-up zone. It's at this bridge coming up on the green sign there. The driver's going to have to slot into single file through the chicane as SGP's airborne up over the curb. He manages to hold on to it, but a bit like Boemi when his wheels popped off. You can't steer when you've got no wheels touching the ground.
Yeah, it needs to watch, because that might give Demon R the run up the start-finish straight here.
It has, Demon R's got a bit of a run. I mean, it is something worth pointing out, Ray, that the chicane, although it's a fairly... someone's just climbed the barrier. I think that may have been possibly SRI, I'm not sure. Although the chicane is not the most difficult of corners in single file, it does lead on to the main straight, and if you slow through the chicane, you're going to lose time down the straight. Potentially, SGP brushing the camera there. Also, it wasn't a camera, it was his helmet. he is now leading the way. I've got to mention as well, Ray, that the pit lane is not on the pitch straight, it's on the pit hairpin, which is why it's called the pity party. Yep, there's the...
As you can see in the video there.
Yep.
The camera.
You know what, Dave the Arb is coming under a bit of pressure. He's got ahead of SRI, but he's now under pressure from SRI and Formula Gary by the looks of things as they're making their way towards the tunnel. Conrad a bit ahead of him. I'm looking at the pack cam. Yeah, David Harp and SRI battling. Demon R got a bit of a gap now to SGP, but not in the way that he wants it. Ooh, I thought Twilight was going to slap the barrier then. What, the wall?
No, and look at that, Conrad's right on the back of them. So Conrad's broke away from that pack quite quickly. So he has got a bit of pace. Oh, freeway.
He's trying to go around the outside of Steve F1 through the right hander. Can't quite get it done. SRI having a look at Dave the Art, but they're getting to the fuzz zone start point. So he's going to have to back out, as you see on the pack cam. That's not. Oh, Twilight nearly into the barrier. He must have got a bit wobbly or bouncy through the chicane. And the thing is, if you hit a wall in the chicane, Ray, you're pretty much coming to a dead stop, aren't you?
Yeah, or even it's going to spin you around. So it depends how you hit it. So, yeah. As we see, Conrad, is he going to look for a move into turn 1 here?
He is having a look at a move here. I think for Twilight, he was looking away that Steve F1 and Conrad had been battling a little bit. Dave the Harp and SRI side by side still. Demon R getting closer to the back of SGP as they make their way through Worms and Ranganathans and then head down towards the hairpin, the Pity Party. SRI now ahead of Dave the Harp.
Yeah, I think that was through the Worms and whatever. Mr. Nathan.
Ranganathans. Oh, Demon Osk making a move up the inside of the hairpin. Got the tighter line though, it's not going to work for him.
Demon R in that first sector had a purple sector time, so he has tried to push SGP either into a mistake or get him to go a wee bit faster.
Well, I mean, it may be worth not attacking SGP because they're breaking away from Twilight a little bit, which will be a good thing for these two as they make their way there on nose to tail through the tunnel. Steve F1 still got Conrad on him.
Yeah, I was going to say, we can see Conrad just gaining on Steve F1. Oh, Conrad's pushing Steve F1.
Demon R's going for the move though, for the lead into through the right-hander before the fuzz zone. SGP, can he fight back? No, he can't. He's going to have to tuck him behind. That's a lovely little move from Demon R. He's a little bit wide though. He's a little bit over the curb though. That's the wall over there. Oh, he nearly tags it. Oh, and looking at Dave the Arp, he's under a bit of pressure. SGP retakes the lead. Sorry to cut you off.
And Conrad done the same move as Demon R there to Steve F1. He's ahead of Steve F1 out that right-hander into the fuzz zone.
Nice. Gary's got a bit of a run on Dave the Harp on the pack cam. Let's see what SGP back ahead of Demon R as we saw. So Demon R's got it all to do again. I mean, it's interesting at the moment that SGP and Demon R are pulling away a little bit from the pack. But SGP was so much faster than everybody in qualifying. As Gary's just made a bit of an error, I think Jason sneaks through on the pack cam. Yeah, SGP was rapid in qualifying, so Demon R really could do with keeping the pressure on as Jason and Gary still side by side behind Dave the Harp. Yeah, look at the gap these two have got. They're running a phenomenal pace. Question would be, what might it be doing to their tyres?
Yeah, well, yeah, it could be. They could be. Are they burning them up too quickly or what? We do know that the track's not a big tyre busting track, but with fighting constant, is that not going to?
It could do. Sorry, I'm having a look at Dave the Arp.
I'm looking everybody's right.
Yeah, well, I'm looking at Dave the Arp going into the tunnel. It's like he's being harassed by a bunch of paparazzi. Someone's just tagged the barrier. I'm saying nothing. Oh, Rich Blues! Oh dear, oh dear. I think he may have been taking a bit of evasive behind what Dave was having a cheeky little look there. Couldn't quite get it done. I'm guessing that's what you were in about. Either that or you need to doctor about premature celebration.
I've seen Dave Harp having a look there. I thought he was going to go in for it, but it seems to have backed out. As we see Rich Blues and now we're on, I don't know whose delivery that is.
Jimmy,
is that Gary?
That's Jimmy, that one. It looks like the Pat Cam sort of doing a bit of run through from back to front at the moment as SGP's just gone very wide at turn 1. Bunsel's got a good run on the Pat Cam, but he's got cars ahead of him, nowhere to go. SGP has got himself a little bit out of shape. Demon R is right on the back of him. Got a good opportunity now down into the hairpin as Jimmy come flying around the corner, tags the barrier though.
So does the Demon R, he tagged the barrier as well.
Oh dear,
so that's why there's a gap between him and SGP now.
Yeah, he was right behind SGP, and now he's not. Twilight's still in 3rd place. He's got a big gap to Conrad. Oh, just getting a bit of an headache on my left side.
So do you think SGP's just managing this and letting Demon R try burn up his tyres a wee bit more? Trying to figure a way around him and that.
Maybe.
Because if you said excellent pace on qualifying, try to see. Oh no, I don't have. I do have qualifying times. So he was a 147.8 and Demon R was a 148.0. So
yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe with SGP. Oh, it's Conrad and Steve F1 having a bit of a battle. Can't quite get outdone. Maybe with SGP, it was a case of he can go faster when he hasn't got a car up his chuff and he can brake wherever he wants. Someone was sideways, big time SRI. That was, I think he tagged the wall on the exit of the fuzz. Oh dear.
Yep, that's put way back. Yeah, you can see him. He's just getting going again. So Steve F1, is he going to slowly catch Conrad?
Well, maybe Steve F1 will be thinking, let's not battle, and then they can catch Twilight, because they've got a bit of a gap to Jason and Dave and Gary and Jimmy, who are battling on the main screen now. And you know what, I'm looking on the Pat camera, and it's looking like Demon R's dropped way off the back of SGP at the moment. I wonder if SGP has just started sort of picking up the pace now that he hasn't got someone harassing his rear end. I think Jimmy just scratched his wing mirrors off on the wall there as Jason makes his way around the hairpin. A little bit wide, but it doesn't mean it's slow. Gary and Jimmy now side by side.
Look at that, SRI had his crash. He's already on the back of the pack. And I think just at the front of this pack we've got Dave the Harp and Jason. So SRI's within, what's that, a lap? Caught near enough back to where he was.
That he has. Also, Steve F1 was bump drafting Conrad. So yeah, I think he's definitely not in the attack mode, is Steve F1. He's in the let's work together and pick up the pace if we can.
Get Twilight sitting there in 3rd place, and Twilight at the moment doing pretty well. Like he's shown that with it's not like race cars, but
road
you know,
cars,
like road cars. He's shown like as a champion from what was it?
I'm not going to tell you what the championship was called.
It was
While you try and remember or look it up, Dave the Arp is all over the back of Jason.
I can't remember the letters for it, but it was.
Dave! Big sideways.
Sliding everywhere, so's Jimmy.
Yeah, I think Jimmy was sliding partially in taking evasive. Gary's tagged the wall. Oh, Dave just squeezed Jimmy a little bit into the wall there. Dave's under a little bit of pressure now with him having that big sideways moment. His tyres will have overheated a little bit, and also he is being absolutely hounded by SRI and Jimmy and Gary. Oh, he's going defensive. He's going very defensive. SRI is still there though. Oh, a little bit of contact. Jason's into the pits. Sorry.
Look at that. Gary came. Even though SRI was trying to keep it the apex, Gary's managed to get even tighter.
Well, I do.
The Harp survives to another corner then.
Yeah. Well,
it was the Dynamic GT League CC.
Nearly. I was going to say, though, that Gary has been going to the gym a lot lately, so it's no surprise that he's been making things a little bit tighter. SRI, though, trying to get up alongside Jimmy into the right-hander. Pre-fuzz corner. Jimmy and SRI still side by side. SRI just ahead. Gary having a cheeky look as well, but he'll realise that he has to slot in behind, as does Jimmy. Dave clipped SRI, is he wide there? He may have been a little bit. I mean, the fuzz here is something that obviously we can talk about at different points. So far, though, it seems to be doing what it was made to do, which is nobody's hit somebody else into the barriers there yet. We'll go for a risky overtake because they're not allowed to. And for anyone that says, well, that's not racing, I would say check out Aussie V8s. They do it in a section of corners where it is dangerous to overtake. Okay, Dave, though, we've seen this situation before where we kind of want him to pull away from the pack and be able to get in his rhythm and get to his pace. But if he's being attacked, he may end up overheating his tyres a little bit. Yeah, he may end up heating those tyres a bit.
It's just, it's in the worms and whatever. He's just sliding it a wee bit more. I can't remember the name because you've just sprung it on me. I remember hearing Steve talk about, who's in the pits?
Dave
Hart.
So
yeah, I heard SGP say about the name. When was it? Thursday night? Last night? So
he was on about Romish. Wait, but though he said Ram. Gary just... I don't think he realised that it was that close between him and Jimmy in the wall there. He called him Ramesh, but it's Ramesh Ranganathan. Okay, so let's see. Jason has pitted. We know that a few laps ago. He's in 10th. I think Dave's come out in 12th. He's now pitted. SGP hasn't pitted. I think the pack cap's just done a lap on board with him, or is about to do a lap on board with SGP. And I think, the gap between him and Demon R now, because we've not looked at that for a while, it's not massive, but I think it's growing. To make 2 to 3 seconds. Bunce will nearly just take the fuzz. So we are going for an onboard lap with SGP. And this is the thing, now he's got a bit of a gap, he'll be able to settle into his rhythm. And the question will be, though, what's everybody going to do for strategy? Dave Harp and Jason pitting when they have would suggest a 2-stop. Jimmy got a bit sideways there. He's up the inside of Gary. Cheeky. Bunsel's out wide. Clips the barrier. I think Gary was trying to give Jimmy some room and may have also tagged Bunsel. But I think all's fair in love and war. At least Bunsel would say so anyway.
So he'll be asking, give me some rubber.
Aye, that he will.
A cheeky night.
Well, when you saying he'll be asking, it's something I can ask you. What's the difference between a kangaroo and a kangaroot?
Don't have a clue.
Bunsel's into the pits.
Yes.
So you don't know what the difference is between a kangaroo and a kangaroot. Well, one's a marsupial, the other's a Geordie stuck in a lift. Kangaroot. Talking about Geordies, he's not quite a Geordie, but Conrad has still got Steve F1 right up his chuff. Interestingly, though, these two haven't caught Twilight.
So what is it if he's not a Geordie? He sounds like a fucking Geordie.
It does sound like a Geordie, but he's not from Newcastle, so I don't know if he's still classed as a Geordie. Not a Geordie, or it's just him. He got a bit wide. Is he going to find the barrier? He very nearly found the barrier. Steve F1, though, manages to get past Conrad. I mean, considering he's had no practice, he's been doing well so far, and to avoid tagging the wall there, very impressive. I was saying as well, they weren't catching Twilight, so Twilight's having an absolute stormer here at the moment as Jimmy and Gary rekindle their battle once again.
Yep, they're going side by side into turn 1.
Into Worms, and then Ranganathan. Another reason it could be Wanganathan's blood. That's reminded me actually. You know, people when they get old, they make mistakes with their words sometimes. Like for example, like me and my mum few years ago we went to B&Q because she wanted to get something. We couldn't find them. She went up to a guy that worked there and said, excuse me, could you tell me where the cable cars are? What she meant was cable ties, but it came out as cable cars. Well, this the next thing I'm going to tell you is something she said to me yesterday. She bought, Jimmy is on the attack of Gary here. Well, bump drafted. Jason's having a look with his fresher tyres. This could get tricky if Jason goes side by side. Jimmy's managed to keep hold of it. She bought some like net bags that you put your smalls in to put in the washer. So you put a bag in the washer, right?
Smalls?
Yeah, your underwear. Like you need.
Would you put your underwear in bags to put in the washer?
Because when you're an old person, you don't want to have to be dealing with all the single little items when you can put them all together in a net bag, wash them in the bag, and then you just pull the bag out. It's about making life easier. Ash, you'll find out one day, you'll realise sometimes things are better in a sack. Anyway, my mum got one with a zip on it. Right? She said, I did get one with a woggle on it, but I couldn't do it up. I was like, with a what? With a woggle on it? I don't think that's what it's called, Mother. It's a toggle. Yeah. Oh, SCP's into the pits! I mean, it wasn't...
I kind of get put off because there was a mouse that just...
Yeah, I saw that as well.
Yeah, like the mouse arrow just went up the screen. It's like, what the hell's going on? I'm not touching the mouse.
That's how I thought. It's what Twilight's into the pits as well. So Steve F1 and Conrad. Oh,
is everybody going for the pits?
SRI.
In the pit.
Well, Jason's now in third, so Gary's in second, and there is SGP coming out the pits.
Beside Dave the Harp, is it going to get Dave the Harp or?
Oh no, Dave the Harp's ahead. Oh, okay, this is massive because Jason has pitted, Dave the Harp has pitted, SGP was leading, he's now pitted, he's come out behind Dave the Harp. I mean, there's a couple of things to mention here. Is Jason is still trying to break away from Gary and Jimmy. Gary holding on to second place at the moment. Jason having a look up the inside into the pre-fuzz. And is he ahead? Yes, he is. He's needed to get that done. With his fresher tyres, he now needs to push on and get out of there because Dave the Harp is on his way, and so is SGP. Gary will have to back out of that one, which he does. Jimmy.
Jason's went a wee bit deep there.
Jimmy got massively sideways as well.
Yeah, I thought Jason was going to be slow out because he didn't really hit the apex of the right-hander, it was more the left-hander he hit, and Gary had the straighter line coming out.
Well, Gary's Jason, but Dave is also trying to get Jimmy. Jason defends into one. Gary's gone wide out with a barrier. Yes, it is. Dave goes a little bit wide as well. Ends up stuck behind Jimmy still. So Jimmy hasn't pitted yet. I
wonder how Jimmy's tyres are because I've never seen him straight.
I'm guessing not very good.
SGP's took 2 places in one go.
I didn't even spot that. Yeah, so as Jimmy was sideways and Dave was sort of taking evasive, SGP was able to sneak through. And you know what? I can tell you as well, Demon R has not pitted. I think Gary is just headed into the pits. Okay, well, we've got less than 20 minutes of the race.
Did that happen, Jimmy, side by side? That they're going to sort it out before the tunnel? They don't want to have a nasty crash in the tunnel, you know?
That's the last thing they need, isn't it? Well, it looks like they're trying to give each other plenty of room. And one of the things that can happen in that scenario, though, is as they get to this kink, a car can go wide like that, like Dave did. I think Jimmy may have also tagged the wall. I think they both got a little bit slippery. As Twilight now coming between the middle of Rich. And who is that? Bunsell. Jimmy, what a move. He's just taken 3 cars into one corner just before the fuzz. Twilight, you beast.
But let's listen to his team radio. All I can hear is, what a move.
I thought all I could hear was, if we champions, Bob.
My champion socks and my champion knickers.
Oh,
I bet it's a champion form.
well, I'm
And that's
saying
the wise wife wears.
only the dirty champion can have a championship thong. Oh, Jason went massively wide into the barrier. I think SGP gets the move done. Conrod's just been collected a little bit. I think Steve F1.
Steve F1 slow.
Yeah, I think Steve F1 may have just put Rich into the wall, which gathered up Connor as well. Oh, who's that sideways? Wait,
That's alright.
But no, come on, who's it going to miss? Jimmy. Who's that
It was
sideways?
Jimmy and SRI. When I looked up, it was SRI. I was looking at back.
It was
Can't
the car at the front
see.
that I saw was sideways, and it was Jimmy. SRI. No, it's Steve F1. Sorry, having a look up the inside of Jimmy. Gets that move done. Looks like Steve F1's got a different noggin on as well. Someone changing their helmets without permission.
Yeah, didn't he send it to the page, you know? I've not been sending it to the page, so what was the rule? Minus 10 points?
Race bans, I reckon.
Race bans.
I think that, once again, a situation of drivers trying to give each other a bit of room. The car on the left here, Bunsell, may end up drifting a bit right if he's not careful. No, he is careful. Good to see. He's aware that if he goes full beans through there, he's going to end up collecting the cars next to him as they're battling. SRI on the inside into the pre-fuzz, but Conrad just ahead. Oh, Rich blows.
Rich, where do you come from, Rich?
Where did you come from? Where did you go? Ahead of you. Oh, a little bit close there.
Yeah, that was close for goal there in the first one.
That it was. I'm just wondering, we're not seeing Demon R for a while. Is he pitted? No, he's on his way towards the hairpin now on the track map. So we'll have to keep an eye on that because I think if he does pit, as Conrad is side by side with Jimmy, I think if Demon R does pit, I think he's coming out into a pack. So yeah. Oh, who was that? Oh, Rich.
Rich.
Oh dear.
Rich going wide.
Well, something else was.
SRI and Jimmy will be bit of contact in the middle of the road there.
Yeah, you know what SRI's just said? See you, Jimmy. I apologise for that. Demon R has not pitted, by the way. Yeah, something I was going to mention as well. When SGP pitted, the last thing he would have wanted was for the 5 or 6 cars behind him. Who was that? Oh,
I don't know.
Is Rich going for the pits? It's all right.
That wasn't Rich going for the pits. That was somebody steaming up the left-hand side, going towards the hairpin.
Oh, I didn't see that. I saw the car on the outside. Yeah, so the last thing SGP would have wanted to see was the 5 or 6 cars behind him also pit, because that would have meant that he then would have got a hell of a lot less boost than he would have got had no one pitted. Conrod's on a charge trying to attack Steve F1 on the exit of the tunnel. SRI there as well. Conrad going to the inside. Is he up the inside? Yes, he is. Steve F1 and Conrad have spent most of this race together. SRI getting in there as well. Conrad and Steve F1 side by side. Steve F1 just ahead though at the start of the fuzz. Is SRI backing out of it? Yes, he is. I think he may have been a little bit late backing out of that one. It's compromised Conrad a little bit.
No comment.
No comment. Right, okay. Yes, he's got a bit of a run on him now. Bunsell coming, getting close as well. Gary closing the gap as David Harp on the pack cam has got Twilight right behind him. So Dave currently running 4th, Jason 3rd. Remember, they pitted after about 10-15 minutes. Bunsell big time wide. So I'm wondering if Jason and Dave are going to need to pit again, and if they are, when are they going to do it? Because I think they may want to do it sooner rather than later as Steve F1 gets a little bit sideways as well. Twilight's really closing in on Dave. Dave goes defensive to the hairpin. He doesn't want a party. It's a work meeting.
Well, I thought Twilight was trying to go for the switchback, but Dave the Harp seemed to have covered it off. As Twilight just gives a wee spark on the wall there.
That he does. Oh, I think someone's just tagged somebody into the wall there. Also, Steve F1 has broken away a little bit from Formula Gary and SRI and Conrad. Someone dropped into the pits as well. So Dave and Twilight are catching up to Jason. I think Twilight may potentially have a bit more pace at the moment than Dave and Jason. I mean, he was running fast earlier on. Oh, Dave's going to the inside. That's going to be a bit tricky for Twilight. Round the outside.
Try and go for a switchback. You can't.
You know what? Dave was spit sideways there and may have just tagged the side of Twilight into the barrier. Not a lot Dave could have done about it. I mean, he was trying to give him all the room he could. But I think Dave may be hurting his tyres a bit here. Oh, I saw a blue car nearly at the wall in the background. Also, Conrad nearly hit it as well. Looking from behind Gary. I nearly called him Gavin.
Gavin? See, Twilight is just... Dave the Harp's just holding him up here.
That he is.
Even though they've caught up with Jason, still, what was Twilight was in third, so he needs to try and get past these two. And if these two are trying for a 2-stop, then
well, yeah.
Would you keep the battle going on? Would you?
No. To a degree,
Twilight?
no. Well, okay. Keep him behind you, yeah, because then he's potentially still in your fight. We just saw Demon R going through the hairpin, SGP going through the hairpin. Now, the Conrad, SRI, Gary battle is still going on. Someone was wide. No, sorry, it's Jason going into the pits. David Holden is now up to third place. Sorry,
Are you looking away? Are you away for your mic because you went quiet there?
Yeah, an ambulance just pulled up outside, so I was looking at it. It's a minibus ambulance, so yeah, I don't need to worry about it. Yeah, so
they're coming to take you to that. It's time for you to go to that institution.
they've got a specially made jacket for me. SRI and Gary still battling through the tunnel. Yeah, so for Dave and Twilight, I can understand Dave sort of wanted to keep cars behind him because when he pits again, if he pits again, it may help him regain places later on. Twilight's going for it though. He's just ahead at the fuzz. What a move. Oh no, he's gone deep. Oh, he may have hit the wall here on the exit. No, he is slow though, but I think Dave was unfortunately had to take evasive there. Yeah. Well, you know what? That's it. Potentially. I mean, I'm not questioning who was ahead at the fuzz zone, to start the fuzz zone, but Twilight didn't make the mission. Twilight didn't make the chicane. No, I don't think I am.
It's another like sun here, isn't it?
Yeah.
Can't get your words out.
Demon R once again not pitting. Still got a fairly decent gap to SGP, by the way. So, and with 10 minutes to go, we got into a conversation at the last race, Ray, when Twilight was leading, and we were saying, well, 10 minutes to go, he can't pit now. If he pits now, he'll be last. Well, for Demon R, I don't think he'd be last, but
I think he'd just be coming out ahead of Dave the Harp here.
Maybe.
It's either that or just the person that's just went round the hairpin now, but I see Dave the Harp holding up Steve F1 defending. Steve F1's looking left, right, he's like, what way do I go?
Maybe he's trying to see if Dave's got any grip in those tyres. Whoa, Conrad and Gary side by side through the tunnel. Steve F1's got a good run, but Dave the Harp goes defensive. Twilight is running away now. I think Dave's tyres are sort of getting towards the end of their maximum grip for him. He's a little sideways. Steve F1 gets a bit of a run, but he's not ahead of the fuzz, so he'll have to tuck him behind. Some people might not like that, but we can talk about that afterwards. Dave got big airborne there, but I think Steve was a little too out of shape to capitalise. So yeah, interesting different strategies going on. SRI with Conrad and formerly Gary now closing up to the back of Steve F1. You know what? Steve F1, he's gone for a little Mansell dummy. But Dave the Harp's got the inside. Can he get it slowed down? No, he's going a little bit wide. Steve F1 trying to have a look, but this is just allowing SRI and Conrad to close in. Now Steve's gone wide. And Dave's a bit wide, and here comes SRI. I'm trying to have a look at the inside. Steve F1 covers it off, but Connor says, thank you, Ray. I'll go around the outside of you.
Yeah, and they've both got to watch because the wall sticks out there, so if you don't give the driver enough room on your right hand side, he's going to clamper that wall. And as we see, we're going for any switchbacks here.
Conrod's got a bit of a run on Steve F1 here, but yeah, I think Dave has managed to get a decent enough exit that Steve F1 can't attack Dave. He's going to have to be looking in his mirrors a bit more. Yeah, see, he's a little bit too far back, but if Conrod was to...
Gary side by side there in the back of the pack here. Jimmy just hit the wall.
I was going to say...
I said the wrong name to begin with.
I was going to say, yeah, if Conrod was to bump draft Steve F1, they could potentially catch Dave Harp, and he has bump drafted Steve F1, but now, Dave was defended. Steve went to look up the outside, but Connor was there. Connor's gone deep. Is he going to hold it on? Yes, he is, just about. He manages to get ahead of Steve F1. Oh, this is crazy. He can't get ahead of Dave the Harp, though, so now they're going to need to try and slot into single file if they can, and they managed to do it beautifully through the chicane there. Well, I personally think beautifully through the chicane. Jason, who pitted again recently, he's now catching up to the back of the pack. And what I was saying a few moments ago, or about a lap ago, was something interesting that was happening. It's Jimmy having a look at the back of Gary and Connor having a look around the outside of Dave, is that the pack is coming all back together here. Conrod trying to make the move around the outside of Dave the Harp. Steve F1 is in a watching position. Oh, Dave got a little bit sideways.
He's back in, just... Was that a bum bash or Conrad's rear tyre there?
It might be. Jason got all out of shape as well. I think Dave's rear tyres...
Dave the Harp's still out of shape. Steve F1's like, where do I go? Do I go left? Do I go right? And he's like...
Straight down the middle.
You're hanging your ass out here, buddy.
Steve's having a look up the inside of Dave at the hairpin. Dave's trying to squeeze him a little bit. Conrod was just ahead. Steve F1 just manages to get ahead as well. The thing is, with Dave the Harp, we've seen him going a bit more sideways and more sideways. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's now got to a point where his tyres on the rear, well, the rear left takes the punishment here. I wouldn't be surprised if through some of these corners the back end is just stepping out on him, because that's what happens when the tyres get massively imbalanced. Demon Arlo still has not pitted as he is making his way through the fuzz. SGP's closing that gap.
Yeah, he's just hitting the fuzz now, so as we see Dave the Harp still ahead of this pack, well, except from Steve F1 and Conrad, but he's still trying to push it there. He's still he's sideways. Oh, SRI's hit the wall. SRI and Jason, they need to sort this out.
Well, I was going to mention that the leader...
Are they going to sort that out?
Demon
No, they were still side by side. I don't think they sorted that out.
I was not looking. I was going to mention that we seem to be on board with Demon R at the moment on the pack cam. It'll be interesting to see, because he's not pitted yet, so it'll be interesting to see if he's got any grip in those tyres, right? We'll know if he has or hasn't when he starts going sideways on him. Steve F1 having a look up the inside of Conrad. I don't know if Conrad knew it was there or if he saw the kink. He got a little bit more physical than Steve would have liked. But Conrad's gone deep into the barrier. That'll compromise if Steve F1 gets through. Oh, hang on, was that a zoom in on his shiny bonnet? Bloody Steve friend.
Illegal
helmet friend.
Yes, it's not been taken to the stewards for testing.
Well, you see, I did hear rumours that the Steves were tapping their helmets together pre-race. With helmet friends. Oh, big deep. That was Dave. I don't know if he was tagged or if he was I wasn't really watching. I was too busy making a cock joke. Conrod's still on the back of Steve F1. Here's the thought for you, actually, while these two are having a bit of a ding-dong bounce. You know how like, we've all got our PSN names and they become our nicknames, right? So like Twilight's Twilight. I don't call Twilight by his real name. I call it Twilight. Conrod's Conrad. Steve F1 is Steve F1. And so on. So it got me thinking as Conrad's having a look here. Have a think for a minute, Ray. If there was anyone that you worked with that had a funny nickname, and what was it?
Oh, all my workmates had funny names. I'm Scottish and I worked in the kitchen.
Well, yeah, that is true. Jason is ahead of the pack now. Conrad's a little bit out of shape. Oh, he's big time out of shape. Oh, he may have just tagged the barrier. Around he goes. And here comes the pack. Oh, it's painful for Conrad. As it meow. Oh, Demon Arm having a quick look at him there. SGP has really closed that gap in. Ooh! How long have we got left? 3 minutes.
Right. Yeah, about 3 minutes. Look at that pack.
Yeah. Well,
It's not finished yet.
it really isn't.
The hat just
Well, I mean,
yeah, he has the reserve.
Yeah.
So
ooh, he got
still
this.
keeping up with the pack, but
Well, he'll get a bit more grip now with the boost. That'll help with his rear tyres. Jimmy drifting.
you know, Jimmy likes to throw the back end down. Does he not realise there's tyre wear on or what?
I think he just doesn't care that there's tyre wear. Gary having a...
Oh, he's hooking SRI out to dry there.
That is. I think Gary was having a bit of a defence.
SRI having a step out in the back end. Sorry.
That's all right. I was just going to say that Gary, it may look like Gary was going for a move on to ahead of him, but I think he was just going defensive more than anything. Just having a look on the pack cam as Dave. I think Dave's tyres are struggling even through the high speed sort of little corners. Let's have a look on the pack cam. Through, is he getting sideways? It is. Yeah, look. I think he's struggling with his tyres. Jimmy having a look at SRI headed up into the pre-fuzz. SRI holds on though, and I mentioned about the nicknames, right? Because I used to work with a guy that was called Foreskin, because whenever the work got hard, he fucking disappeared.
I don't get it.
You don't get it. Okay. He was called Foreskin because he always disappeared when the work got hard.
Do you have a different model? SGP clipped the wall, but he's close and Demon R's. That's the last
I think it might be, but I can't believe that Joker's just died as much as it has, Ray. I thought that was a good one. Bloody hell. Got no skin in the game, mate. See, that's another one. I just made that one up. I thought it was good. I like that explain. Okay, you were mentioning about SGP. Holy crap, look at the pack cam. Look at the main screen. SGP is on him. Can't see it there, but he is. He's there.
This is going to be the last lap. No, there's no way they can get to the end in 40 seconds.
Well, it's not 40 seconds, it's 20 seconds. But 15.
15.
Nearly 10. Well, I mean, interestingly, if SGP's been closing the gap this much, how are Demon R's tyres? Because let's not forget, he has not pitted, and he was a little bit sideways through the pre-fuzz. He'll know he'll be safe through the fuzz because he's ahead now, but as he got the grip in the tyre, he's slow. It's very slow. He's a bit twitchy. SGP was a bit wheelie. He's still closing the gap. Demon R a little bit twitchy, a little bit sideways through the corner. Is SGP going to catch him before the line? He's gaining. It's not enough. Demon R's going to hold on to it to take the win. SGP second place. Twilight. He's all by himself. He's going to take third. Steve F1 was a little bit wobbly there, but ahead he goes. Oh, Gary's gone deep. Jimmy going for the move. Oh, Jimmy, did he back out of that? I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Well, you know what? I'm going to G-spot that. Oh, Dave, the opposite to the barrier. Oh, no, and he's lost it. Oh, dear, Dave.
Who's that?
That's Bonsall, yeah. Oh, you know, I'm wondering if Dave just had a massive tank slapper there with his tyres. And it looks like Conrad. I think Conrad, actually, I'm hearing pitted after an incident late on there. What a disaster for Dave there, unfortunately. Did Dave not do an additional stop? So Dave did a one stop then, doing 15 and 25. I mean, he may have been able to do it, I think, had his tyres not gone off a little bit, because it did look, a bit like we saw with Conrad last week, wasn't it? Where we said, oh, he's getting a bit sideways in a couple of corners. And then we saw it was getting a little worse and a little worse. And when I say worse, not his driving, it's just the grip wasn't there in the tyres. And I think that was happening for Dave. I do want to... I'll have a mention of a G-spot moment with Jimmy, and that's something that I'll make a note of now, actually. We can perhaps have a look at the next race because I think there's something interesting in that. But anyway, okay, so recap that race, Ray. Dropped you in it there.
Oh, Jesus, that was mental. Like with these cars at these tracks, there's just a lot going on, and it's hard just try to keep up. The pack was just stuck together, like there was always a battle going on. Damon R, he had a bit of a braver once SGP pitted for a bit, even though he still had to try and keep his times up and try and keep an eye on managing the gap.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was an interesting. I mean, we didn't really focus much on what was happening during the race once SGP had pitted, because there was so much action. Sorry, I'll turn away from the microphone. Because there was so much action going on in the pack. But just to sort of recap it, from the looks of it, I think you mentioned that Demon R, when he was right behind SGP, I think he tagged the wall and then he dropped off, and then SGP just ran away. I think pulled out about a 3 to 4 second gap. And I wouldn't be surprised if at that point Demon R sort of went, well, okay, if I push to, if he pushes to catch SGP, he might kill his tyres, he might make a mistake, when in reality, Demon R's race wasn't with SGP here. Demon R's race was with Steve F1, because Demon R is currently leading the championship and Steve F1's in second. So for Demon R, if it was a case of pushing beyond what he felt he could do to catch SGP for the win is too big a risk, then conceding that second is good enough, because Steve F1 I think was in 5th or 6th at that point, and that's what he may have been looking at. Once SGP pitted though, that changed everything, because I think the pit lane lost time here was about 23 seconds, so SGP comes out of the pits 20-ish seconds behind, but because 5-6 cars behind him pitted, he comes out in like 5th place instead of 10th, gets hardly any boost. When he eventually catches Jason and passes Jason, he then it sort of dawns on everyone, or except for me on commentary, that he was about 21 seconds behind at that point, and he'd already, I think, probably done about 4 or 5 laps before he passed Jason. So instead of having 4 or 5 laps of loads of boost and closing that gap, he didn't have none of that. Gets into second, and then he's got a 21 second gap that he's got 20 minutes to bring down. And I mean, okay, we didn't hint on it much during the race, but it definitely closed it down by that last lap.
Yeah, 6/10 of a second over the line it was.
Yeah. I think.
But he knows what to do next time. Let's go in a lap earlier.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the interesting thing would be is, could SGP have not pitted?
Yeah, and that's the thing. We don't really get to see like tyre wear on the videos and that. It'd be interesting to see that, like tyre wears. Could he have done it without pitting? How bad is the tyre wear per driver?
I mean, one of the things that, another factor could have been that when SGP got that little bit of a gap to Demon R and then was pulling away, maybe he had the sort of hammer time sort of situation where he's like, okay, now I've got the gap, now I need to pump in some fast laps, make that gap bigger, expecting to pit, but expecting others to pit as well at some point. But maybe it was a case of, because he pushed for a certain period of time, he didn't want to do all the way to the end. Because it is, I mean, we talked about, if you punish your tyres too much, then you don't get to the end. So I think with Demon R, I think had he pushed to try and catch SGP, I don't think he'd have got to the end because he'd have took it out of his tyres too much, I think. And once SGP pitted, I think Demon Eye had no choice other than to stay out to have any chance of winning the race, really, because SGP was just too damn quick. What I will say, though, is Twilight, he might not like this track, but it's had a bloody good result here. He may have had a bit of a lonely race, but what an overtake he did, passing 3 cars in one corner, finishing third. Personally, I think all-round brilliant drive from him.
Yeah, he's been doing great on his road cars, like from his championship win. We always see that he's pretty good on the road cars. Be interesting to see what he's like next season with a
race car. Yeah. I mean, I think some people do prefer road cars, but you do have to be careful with them. So yeah, I mean, I accidentally filled the Escort with diesel. She died.
I thought the Escort was a diesel.
I meant female Escort.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. But yeah, he does like the road cars. I do. Well, it will be interesting how he gets on with the race cars. Personally, I think it may depend on the race car because there are some that I think he does. Who finished fourth? And Steve F1 finished fourth.
Steve F1 finished fourth.
He had an interesting race.
Was what 3 seconds behind Twilight at least.
Yeah, I think he spent most of the race looking at Conrod's rear wing.
That and Dave the Harp. Dave the Harp done a great defensive stunt.
Oh yeah. I mean, he definitely didn't make it easy.
What was it? We heard on the radio that it cost him 6 seconds behind Dave the Harp.
Yeah. I mean, that's I'm thinking about it. I think I do remember someone mentioning that Steve F1 couldn't quite follow Twilight through the traffic, which is a massive compliment to Twilight, but also a massive compliment to everybody else. I mean, I think it's nice when we make it hard for each other to overtake. Obviously, it's got to be fair, but yeah. So it's an interesting one. I mean, there was some fantastic battles going on with like Steve and Conrod. I mean, Conrod, not having no practice, has had a brilliant race, and unfortunately, it's ended up going wrong with what I think 4 minutes to go when he got a bit out of shape at the fuzz. I mean, that can happen, and it's cruel. It really is cruel, but it can happen. Gary and Jimmy, I think they pretty much spent most of that race side by side with each other.
Rich Boys, we don't really see much of him.
No, that is true. And maybe Rich just had a race where he's just kind of sort of tried to keep himself a bit out of trouble. Maybe. I mean, it's.
Maybe had a late call to run home and get the Wayne into bed and that put him off a wee bit.
Could be.
To come out his rhythm.
Yeah, definitely could be.
But Brunso, he was in there as well, like with Jimmy, former Gary, SRI, and Dave the Harp. He was in that group as well.
The thing is, once again with Bunzel though, I mean, we've seen a few. I mean, this particular track for me, there was a few sort of areas of concern on the racetrack. One of them was the hairpin, because of people potentially going in there a bit too hot. Also, just in case anybody can hear a television, don't worry, it's Ray's wife Kirsty, but we're not going to disturb her. No, you're all right. It's all right. It's just that this part of the video, because there's no cars noises, people may just be able to hear a bit more, but it's okay.
It's okay. She's fell asleep, so I'll get it.
All right.
Casey, turn that down.
Get the done. And while Ray's sorting that out, I would just like to mention that Okay. Yeah, so I forgot what I was saying. Rich, didn't really see much of what was happening in Rich's race, unfortunately. But also, that's right, around this track there was a few areas of concern for me. One was the hairpin. Another, actually, was the tunnel, because the tunnel is absolutely easy, flat out. But as soon as you go side by side with someone through there, it's very easy, if you go flat out, to end up sliding across the road and either hitting the car next to you or sliding across into the wall yourself. It's so easily done. And
if the car behind's flashing its lights, it could blind you and you could have a nasty accident in there.
Yeah, that you could. And maybe we could get some pictures for the G-Spot for that next week. We'll have to wait and see. But I did see Bunsell on a couple of occasions on the way through the tunnel, and even with a couple of other drivers actually, where I was thinking, okay, there's the possibility that one of them may go wide and hit the wall. We saw it with Dave and Jimmy, I think. Dave, he was leaving space and he unfortunately ran wide at the wall. I think Jimmy was trying to also leave space but ended up sliding across the road into the wall a bit later on. I mean, to be fair, I think had Dave not slid wide into the wall, I think Jimmy may have hit Dave, but it's a situation that I could see happening there. But also seeing drivers go through their side by side and make it might not seem like much, but actually it's a massive thing for me personally, I think. So
especially when we know these cars can slide about, so for the drivers to go, well, I've got somebody there, and either just give a dab of the brakes or a quick lift it off so their car just that wee bit slower, puts the weight onto the front of the car so it turns that wee bit better.
Yep.
Was pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly it's a brilliant description of what happens there. Well done. I'm proud of you, Ray. It is, yeah. They lift off the weight balance.
I'm learning. It's only how long we've been racing? 15 years taking up.
Yeah, something like that, yeah. But to be fair, it's one of those things that a lot of people don't, perhaps, if they've not been made aware of it, it is a situation or a physic that people may not be aware of. That weight transfer within a vehicle is something that plays a part in GT sport. It really does. And that's why...
It's no games of this kind of era.
Yeah.
And then when we go into the next gen of stuff, it's going to be more advanced as well. So.
Yep. I mean, that's the thing. It's one of the things where when people go on about physics, like the physics of a game or the model of the car, a lot of it, or a part of that, is to do with the actual, like, is there a weight transfer, and if there is, when there is, what effect does that have? So yeah, it's very minor details but play huge parts. I mean, it's a little bit like a good physics model is if you have a lockup, you then feel that lockup and suffer from it. A not great physics model doesn't do that. Now, unfortunately, a lot of games don't do that, don't have that feature, but they do it for the end user. It's like for the mass user doesn't want to be having their steering wheel vibrate out of their hands. But I think as gaming progresses, I think it is something that will come more and more into it. I know it's definitely there in the PC side of gaming, racing games.
I think the word we're looking for is pick up and play.
Yeah.
Some games are pick up and play, and some people don't want the pick up and play games. They want where they have to set even the steering wheel up with force feedback, different settings in that, and have the realism from the cars as well.
Yeah. I mean, saying that though, I mean, I did know people in a different racing series on PC that I was involved in for a while that loved the physics engines of games, like of say R-Factor 2, and were very competitive with their racing, but they would have no force feedback through their wheel. I never could get my head around that one, but they would also be rapid, so I couldn't really complain. Okay, we've sort of gone off on a bit of a tangent there, but anyway, yeah.
The fuzz on machine.
Well, if we're going to talk fuzz, we really need to mention the section that it's going to be talked about in, but we'll do that in a moment, because I do just want to say that we were talking about Rich, and then we sort of went off on a bit of a tangent, so and Bunzel and that lot, and it isn't always easy as a commentator to go through and talk about everybody's race, because especially when there's so much going on, because it's not like we're focusing on one person or anything like that. So what I will say is, I think people may have differences of opinion of that particular racetrack.
Have you spotted what I've spotted?
I don't know. What have you spotted?
Who were we talking about before we went off topic?
Rich.
And what's his favourite position to finish in?
Well, you see, this championship, right? I don't know if anybody knows this, but this championship, it's 9th place.
What do you mean it's 9th?
I'm pretty sure he has finished just about every race this championship in 9th place.
Well, tonight he finished in 8th.
Well, he's ruined it now. And you see, the only reason I know this is because when I'm sorting the images out, there's a few people that quite often on a race result don't have to be moved, and Rich is one of them. So yeah, this season he's been 9th place quite a lot. I couldn't have known, and now if I looked I'd probably be wrong, but yeah, I'm pretty sure he's been 9th place on a race. Probably have a look while doing it. Okay, in a moment we will go on to the section that where we talk about some random stuff. But I just want to mention that because I know you like your history, Ray, and stuff like that. So I don't know if you know, but it was revealed today that a 4,000-year-old cheese has been found in a tomb in Egypt. It's under the foreskin of a pharaoh.
Oh, that's disgusting.
And on that bombshell,
That must be smelly shit. They've not said what's next week's try.
Well, we do that after the
Right.
the spot of G. I'm just waiting for you to now do the
Let's go to the G spot.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
There we go. Okay, so on today's G Spot, we have a 4,000-year-old cheese.
It's fucking stinking.
I wonder if it's blue cheese. Oh dear. Right, okay. Unfortunately, I haven't got any images or video of this. I'll try and get it for next week. And we can sort of look at it in more detail. So the fuzz. I want to mention about the fuzz with Jimmy. That's what I want to go through in more detail next week. But what I wanted to sort of talk about, and we'll quickly mention it now, is when it comes to the fuzz, for anyone that doesn't know, there is a part of the track where we go, right, at this point, whoever is ahead has the position, and whoever is behind has to back off and slot in and single file it through what would be deemed as a potentially dangerous corner, tricky corner, or a corner where we've seen mass crashes. So, for example, like the chicane here. So there's a point where drivers have to work out who's ahead and who's not, and then slot into single file and get through the corner. But there's also sort of a point of the corner where you could go, okay, from now I'm okay to attempt overtaking. So I know when we made the fuzz video, we mentioned it on there. So for example, I think on the last lap, Jimmy slotted in behind Gary as he should in the fuzz zone. Gary clobbers the curb, goes wide. So Gary's clobbered the first apex curb and gone wide. But from that point, Jimmy could overtake him because they've done single file into the corner. Gary has got himself all out of shape, so Jimmy could go for the overtake. Unfortunately, I think in that split-second moment, and we mentioned last week about making split-second decisions, I think Jimmy has thought, oh shit, I can't overtake him, and has ended up sort of pulling off to the side of the track. Now, I don't blame Jimmy for doing that, unless Jimmy felt he'd hit Gary into the corner, I don't know, but it may be that Jimmy, I think, was thinking, oh, I can't overtake him. And I think that may also be where Dave has got himself a little bit out of shape. So I would like to have a look at that one in a bit more detail next week, so that if it was the case of Jimmy thinking, shit, I can't overtake him, that we could actually look at it and go, right, here was the fuzz zone start point, the point where they decide who's in front and who's not. Here's the apex corner, here's where Gary's had a bit of an error, here's where Jimmy could have just carried on. Or if it's a different scenario, we get to look at that. So we don't really need to go into much more detail about that now, but it's at least a quick message that, if there is a fuzz zone, yes, you have to adhere to it on the way in, but if I remember rightly, depending on the sequence of corners, there will be a point where actually you can go for the overtake, sort of mid corners, if the car ahead is out of shape.
Yeah, was it not deemed of the car? Well, that doesn't mean if it's out of shape. It doesn't cover every shape. If the car was reasonable or felt. I'm trying to get the word that was used.
Let me help you out. Let me help you out a little bit here, because something that the drivers may not realise is that when it comes to DGT rules, the wording and terminology that is used is attempted to be used in a non-vague way. Right? So, for example, in this situation, the word you were thinking of is if a car is unnecessarily slow. Now, the DGT admins have, on occasion, and we've said it before, we've had discussions, and sometimes they've been heated about what is the definition of something. So, like, what is the definition of a dive bomb? What's the definition of a push to pass? What's the definition of forcing somebody off the road? And different things like that. And being unnecessarily slow is another one that was discussed. So, now this is my own personal view. Unnecessarily slow would be if somebody is recovering from a crash, say, for example. So they're slow leading up to the fuzz zone, and someone at full speed passes them. That, for me, would be sort of unnecessarily slow. Or if somebody, for example, when they get to the start of the fuzz zone and the car slots in behind, when that car ahead just starts basically brake checking them, and that would be unnecessarily slow. But one of the things that, I mean, I don't know where, maybe we could sort of mention it a little bit, maybe we could talk about it a bit more in next week's G-Spox. I think at the time of recording this, one report may have been put in, but with the wording of unnecessarily slow, I was thinking last night maybe there's the terminology of necessarily slow. So, for example, if you have 4 cars that are battling, those 4 cars have got to get themselves into single file, but it may appear to the 4th car in that train that car number 3 is going very, very slow, unnecessarily slow. However, if that car is just trying to adhere to the fuzz rule and get into position, then maybe that would be a situation of they are being necessarily slow.
Yeah, I get that. That's understandable.
Yeah, I'm surprised I actually came up with it, to be honest, in the middle of my weird dreams. But
yeah, like you said, there's heated discussions with admins, but I kind of put a perspective on it.
Yeah, yep. That's I think we're allowed to have differences in opinions and different perspectives. I mean, I was trying to sort of hint earlier that I think different people, I mean, from the post-race comments, I haven't seen them all. They will have been going...
SRI hasn't put his in.
Bloody hell. Well, you say that. It's probably already been on the screen. Well, this thing, at the point of like us doing the commentary, I've seen some of them, and I think the question was along the lines of like, what were drivers' thoughts of the Tokyo Street Circuit, and I think there'll be some very differing opinions on that, because a little bit like I talked in the last couple of races about depending on how a person's race ends could depend on whether they feel they enjoyed the race or not. So Dave Harp, unfortunately, once again, I don't think he'll have enjoyed that race with the way it has ended for him. Demon Arda, I think he'll probably have loved that race. SGP would have enjoyed it, but may have been frustrated. So different people will have different views depending on where they finished. So I think with people being asked about this circuit, it could definitely vary depending on whether someone was stuck behind another car for large parts of the race or not. So yeah, it'd be interesting to really see what everybody's thoughts are on that, because I do think we'll have a mixed bag. And one of the things being the walls. I mean, it is a feature of the Tokyo circuit that there are walls there, and some people feel that when drivers may make a mistake and slide across the road and hit a wall, it doesn't punish them enough. It's not the same as them sliding off the road into a gravel trap or onto the grass. And I can fully understand that, especially if you see a car ahead make a little bit of a mistake, tag a wall, and they're able to stay ahead of you. I can imagine that would be really frustrating. Personally, it's not something I experienced, so my view of it may be sort of tainted, if that makes sense.
Like, because you've not had that happen around you, your views from a different perspective.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I mean, compare that to, there's some tracks like Goodwood, which is probably way too far the opposite direction. You go out, you make a little mistake at Goodwood, it turns into a big one, because you're going way off the road, as we saw with Twilight a couple of championships ago, when he ended up going off around behind the stewards, the marshals' huts, and into the wheat field and all that lot. So yeah, from one extreme to another on occasion. Was there anything else that you wanted to mention in the sort of fuzz zone? Not the fuzz zone, the G-spot.
The G-spot? No, good racing. Fuzz zone, like, there's a couple of things in the fuzz zone that, like you say about Jimmy, I spotted the Sarai with chasing. The only time we could tell with that, we look back at the footage that we've got and maybe go through it and have something ready for next week.
Well, I mean, yeah, definitely. I mean, we're definitely. Go on.
Be easier to explain with a wee bit of video.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I will say is, I mean, the fuzz zone is going to be a talking point, I think, in the next few weeks for certain, between the admins and the drivers, because, I mean, as with many things in DGT, when some things are tried, feedback is asked. Now, it may be a case on occasion that feedback won't be asked for straight away, so that people can calm down a bit and not give an emotional response. So, because I mean, for example, okay, let's say hypothetically, let's say Demon R had crashed on the last couple of laps in that chicane because SGP had got really close to him, and the question is asked to Demon R, what do you think of the fuzz zone? He goes, fucking shit, because he's had a crap in the room. Fucking shit, load of bollocks, that fucking race. It's an emotional response, not not an actual answer to the question. So
chill down. And drivers, like, this will be out on Sunday night. Put any comments in the comment section, or send comments to the page about how you feel of the fuzz zone, and maybe we can cover it in the next race next week. And
I mean,
that way, like, I could see roughly how drivers felt or what. Just same with any video, like we do sometimes ask, like, for drivers to put comments in.
I mean,
to be honest, I haven't looked at the YouTube video for last week, so I don't know if there's any comments.
Well, that's true. I don't know if there has been any extras. Well, a couple of things I will make. I mean, even if it was something as simple as around a track like Tokyo, like we've just done, where's the edge of the track? If someone has seen, like, for example, watched this video and gone, oh, I didn't go over that bit of road, I thought that wasn't actually part of the track, well, feel free to ask. We can have a look and give our opinion. For example, heading down to the fuzz, actually, because I'd wondered this myself at certain points, but then heading down to the fuzz, I realised there was a curb somewhere, and I was like, oh, well, if that's the curb there, that means that this part of tarmac is the racetrack. Now, in that part of tarmac was a lot of white lines, and it would be very easy for someone to think, well, that bit's not the racetrack. But the curb wouldn't be way off the racetrack, like 2 metres off the racetrack. So it suggests to me that that's where the racetrack would be. But I'm mentioning this because I know we had it some years ago with Singapore, the F1 circuit, and different areas of that circuit where it's like, well, which bit is actually the racetrack and which isn't in certain corners. So even if it's something as small as that, it's like, why was so-and-so using that much sausage curb, or whatever it may be, stuff we can have a look at. But yeah, I forgot what else I was going to say.
Yeah, drivers, put in your comments. We'll try and get it through to them.
Yep.
Maybe that would be a job for myself, actually.
Well, I have remembered what it was I was going to say, and that is that I'm pretty certain. Well, I know that after the race on Thursday, the admins had once they'd sorted stuff out, they did have a discussion about the fuzz at this track in these cars. And I do believe that they are going to get in touch with all of the drivers directly at some point to get their thoughts on the fuzz in these cars at that track. And I think there'll be more discussions to be had with the admins regarding the fuzz there at that track. Because let's put it this way, if nobody in the league wants to race at that track, then it might be a track that maybe we don't race again. Even if a car is nice around that track, because I mean, one of the things I did think, and I should have mentioned this earlier, I was meant to mention it earlier.
You don't want to have you're taking a track out. You want to try as a league and evolving is how can we get drivers wanting to race at this track? What can we put in place, or what?
Well, yeah.
What the drivers want? Is it got to be like a certain level of car?
Well, that's yeah. I mean, that's
Is it got certain level of car, certain level of power, whatever? Is there got to be certain, maybe like we've got the fuzz zone at a certain place, or
maybe
is it
does
just
the fuzz zone need? Does the start of the fuzz zone need to be earlier? Does it need to be at a different point? There's a lot of different factors. I mean, I think
tires as well, fuel and tire wear as well. So
also, I do wonder if because there are some tracks that exist that are absolutely brilliant to drive around, but are bloody awful to race around. And I'm not saying that Tokyo's one of them, but personally, I think that track is a brilliant one to drive around. May not be as good to race around. So it's a bit like Nordschleife. I love driving around the Nordschleife, but it's not a nice track to race around. But I could easily sit there in just about any car and just go and do laps around the Nordschleife, and I'd be happy as Larry. I don't know who Larry is, but I'd be as happy as Gary. But a race around there...
Admin's trying doing is they test so many cars, different powers, go through so many tracks, try and get a theme for
the seasons as well.
Seasons, so yeah, we might not go to a track that you think, that car would be great to race there, but we're thinking of a theme at the time, so that might skip our minds.
I mean, so for anyone that hasn't clocked it yet, because I have just remembered that I think on the first race video I mentioned about there's a theme with the tracks. If you haven't realised it yet, they're all the short tracks pretty much, apart from the Tokyo circuit we've just done, which was kind of looked at as a bit of a Monaco-ish style track, but with a chance of using the fuzz. But yeah, so there is a theme to the tracks that are being used in this championship, and for the ones that are being looked at for the next one and the one after. So it's not like it's just picking random tracks. The tracks are sort of being selected to hopefully be suitable for the car. I mean, let's not forget as well, you could take a car around Bathurst and think that Bathurst is a dreadful track and should never be driven on, because the down the mountain section is absolutely bloody awful. But then you get another car and it's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, and the different settings, like don't know how many times we've raced at Bathurst and we've tried different cars, different settings, and some are like, well, this is nice, and some are just like, no.
Well, it's like you don't take a Honda NSX down the mountain. You just give it a spin. But take a Evo or Subaru rally car. It's great fun. Or an LMP1, old or new, or Group 2s, Group 3s. Well, not all of them, but yeah, some of them are amazing. Right, anyway. Kind of waffled a bit there. So I want to mention that there's only one thing that I don't like about Halloween, which is...
What?
Witches.
You bugger. See, I had a few jokes ready. I was watching the TikToks and I was checking them up. I had them ready. But then I forgot to get them back up. I was like, oh, yeah, bastard. So through the race, if you click on that, I was a wee bit out of sync of what Demon R was saying about the race, and then I was jumping in when I realised he's asked me something. It's because I was too busy looking for the jokes. I was like,
Wow. You know what?
the race one monitor had all the info, another two, and then I was searching on jokes on my fourth monitor. I was like, I can't get that in.
Yeah,
I can't get that in.
It gets to a point as well where you could be looking too many monitors. If you got that many monitors, you've got to be careful what you do with your camera as well. The young couple next door to me, they recently made a sex tape. They don't know it yet.
Was it Pam and Tommy?
No. Oh, no, I've never seen that, actually.
It's on Disney, apparently.
Yeah.
They
have. They made a movie, haven't they? Yeah.
I think, is it a movie or a series?
I don't know.
I don't know. I've just seen flashes of the trailer or whatever it is. Promotion for it.
She's like going mental that it's been released. It's, I'm on that sex tape, and he's like, yeah, so am I.
So am I.
Yeah, but it doesn't look as bad for you. But anyway, I mentioned also there was I mentioned about history. You like history, and I made a bit of a joke that my granddad went down in history, and on one occasion he fingered a girl in geography.
Jesus.
No, that wasn't her name. Should we have a look at next week's track? See, we've waffled for ages. It is Brands Hatch Indie.
Oh yeah, because for the pre-lap race, we all went to turn left.
yeah. At Surtees, we went left and went to turn more left to go on the GP circuit, and it wasn't there. Okay, so I'll put the... Go on.
It's going to be interesting because it's small track.
Yeah.
16 cars. Well, between 16 to 10 cars.
Yeah. Somewhere between 10 and 16 cars around it's 1.21 miles in length, 7 turns, and looks like a flaccid penis. I think once I said that to Steve F1, he went, what? And then when he saw it, I don't think he's ever been able to see anything else. See, I was going...
It's going to be a dick of a race.
Oh, yeah. I was going to put corner names on that I'd made up, but I thought, no, you know what? Brands Hatch is legendary, so I'm not going to call McLaren Corner the dick tip as much as I might have wanted to, or Brabham Straight the shaft.
They both get shaft dick.
Yeah. May have to call Druids STDs. But yeah, it's an iconic location. With it being the short circuit, I've no idea what it's going to be like on tyre wear. I've no idea what it's going to be like for overtaking. I've no idea how long the pit stops are going to take. But
that's going to be really interesting because
it's going to be relentless, I think.
Yeah.
If I remember rightly, we have raced on this short
circuit. It's going to be a monster.
Oh yeah. Was it the Porsches we raced this circuit? Because if I remember rightly, there was...
I think.
We raced Porsche here, because I remember us saying that...
Indy or
no,
GP for the Porsche?
Well, it might have been both, but I know we raced here, and the race before we were saying that it's possible that people may end up getting lapped when they make a pit stop. But to not panic and keep going because it's a very short track. Because we also mentioned similar in the Tomahawk at the BB Oval. So this is a track where, as I said, if somebody goes off at Paddock Hill Bend, ends up in the gravel, and it takes them a while to get going, and then they have a bit of a scruffy rest of the lap, and then they pit, they could easily lose themselves 40 odd seconds. But that's why we have boost. And they can get back in it. And I'll say again that if you find yourself a lap down after having pitted, you will be able to overtake cars that are a lap ahead because of the speed you've got, but do it safely. And also, for those cars that are on a lap ahead, just remember that they've got so much boost, just let them go on a straight. Preferably, that's the best time to let them go, which could be tricky because there ain't many straights. But yeah,
Slipstream them, have it to your advantage.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you can keep up with someone that's got boost, yeah. But yeah, it could be chaos, it could be carnage, it could be absolutely bloody brilliant. It could be a Steve F1 walk, but he doesn't like this version of the track, he says. So if he wins, I think we dock him 20 points.
Yep.
Yeah.
But whereas in the standings, he's
Well,
second at the moment.
second
but he
at
was,
the moment, yeah, that might change because I think he finished 4th.
I finished behind Twilight, but Twilight was 14 points behind him, so might not change.
Okay, fair. Well, what about SGP?
SGP was 17 points behind
Oh.
Steve F.
So Steve F1 may have got a little bit lucky there in that
Yeah.
case. Okay, well, you mentioned about the championship standings, so I reckon we should go and take a look at them. So Ray, thank you for joining us on commentary.
Yeah, no worries. I'm sorry, drivers will waffled on, but
We have, I mean, the videos used to last an hour, and now we've waffled. They last
2 hours.
half hour longer. Also, actually,
it's like the Titanic.
yeah. I will quickly mention as well that the issue with last week's live stream, if it's happened again, I apologise. It wasn't anything that I'd done or we'd done. It seemed to have been a Streamlabs issue. Obviously, once we reloaded, everything seemed to work fine. Hopefully, we won't have those problems, but if we do,
Yeah, I had to reset my settings on my bit rate and cut it down a wee bit. It must have just been taking too much power.
Well, I thought that because I don't know if I've spoken to you in person since. So for anyone that doesn't know how it works, it uses a certain percentage of your internet bit rate to do the live streams. But when we're live streaming, we can actually watch the data, so we can see how much computer power it's using. If any frames are being dropped from the video, what bit rate it's currently running at, so we can actually watch the details while live while it's happening. Now, what happened in last week's live stream is something that when it was happening, I was thinking, oh, it looks like it's dropping frames, and normally that's what it looks like. However, the details that would show me, yes, it's dropping frames and here's how many, was showing no issues at all. Wasn't showing any problems. It wasn't showing a drop in bit rate or an increase in bit rate. It wasn't showing any drop frames. It wasn't showing increased CPU usage. It wasn't showing anything, which is why I initially thought that it was an issue with the video itself. That the video in production had basically created freezes in the video. But I think in hindsight, the information that I was being shown was wrong, and it probably was just dropping frames, but it wasn't showing me that that's what it was.
Yeah, I was the same. It was, the frames were dropping. It was CPU usage was at only 4% though, but 4% is nothing.
Well, I know, but it's very low. But I suppose it depends on you. It depends on how big your equipment is.
Well, get 4 kids.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I had a lot, but it was the bit rate that was causing concern. Even though I've got strong internet, some reason it wasn't able to carry the bit rate that it was doing. So It must have just been a internet issue at the time.
Quite
And it
possible.
lasted for 2-3 days.
Bloody hell. Well, hopefully we won't have any further issues. But if we do, at least now the viewers will have a bit more of an idea of what's happening. I will also mention as well, I know we are going to get going, we are going to disappear in a second, or at least Ray is. I only recently checked on my phone what what video quality YouTube was showing me videos in. Now I've had the same phone for about 5-6 years. I've watched so much stuff on YouTube. I always just thought I was on a decent level of quality. I wasn't.
20p.
I was on the 720, but not even HD. Yeah. So now, when I checked it, it was interesting because I don't know if I checked it before, but it was actually set for all YouTube videos to, as standard, be watched at 720 and nothing like 720, not HD, and not a higher quality. I think, fuck that. Like if 1080 HD is available, I want to watch it 1080 HD. So I have now.
Depends if you can play back at that rate.
Well, yeah. I mean, the phone can. It records in 1080 HD as well. So it is more than capable of replaying the videos. So if people at any point are having issues watching the stream, but there is no issue with the stream, it may be down to the HD level you're trying to watch it at. So for example, if I tried to watch a 1080 HD YouTube video on my phone, but my internet was weak, it wouldn't play it. It would be stuttery, it'd be awful, and if you haven't got it to automatically change the setting, you would manually have to reduce the quality to be able to play it. But if you've got a good quality device and a good quality internet, then you should be able to watch it on 1080, no problem.
If it's on auto and you're getting like lag spikes within it, then just refresh the page. Sometimes the internet page can desync.
That it can.
Yeah, you learn that a lot as being a streamer as well. That people say, "Oh, your stream's jumping." Well, check what you're watching it at and refresh your page.
Yeah,
maybe
your stream keeps freezing. All right, does it? I'll check, and you check. Well, it's not freezing for anybody else. It's like, well, where are you? How's your internet? Well, I'm in an igloo at the North Pole. So, well, what do you expect? Although say that.
I've got the elves fucking holding it up.
I'm glad you carried that sentence on, because you started off with, I've got the elves fucking. And also.
I think it's time to go.
Yeah, and on that snowball, I think it's time to check the conference race result and the championship standings. And sorry, everybody, that this has gone on for so long. We'll try and keep it a bit shorter next week. Right, let's check those points. Taking the victory then, and the maximum 20 points is Demon R, just ahead, and literally just ahead of SGP in second place. Twilight finishing in third place with Steve F1 in fourth. Jason finished in fifth place. SRI finished in sixth place, but unfortunately gets a 3-point penalty for an unfair overtake in the fuzz zone. He reported himself for that, but check out the details on the Facebook page. Formula Gary finished in 7th place, good result for him, 10 points his way. Rich Blues finishes in 8th place, ahead of Jimmy in 9th. We've got Bunsell 10th, and then Dave the Harp in 11th, and Conrad in 12th. Tricky end to the race for Dave and Conrad. But yeah, I think overall a very exciting race. On to the standings then. Demon R still leading the way on 90 points now. He's got a 12-point gap to Steve F1 in second place. Twilight still in third place on 71 points, one ahead of SGP in fourth. Jason still in fifth place on 56 points, and Formula Gary now in sixth place on 44. He's two ahead of Conrad, who's on 42 in seventh. Rich Blues moves up to eighth place on 41 points, one ahead of Dave the Harp in ninth. And Bonsall is in 10th place on 36 points. He's two ahead of Jimmy in 11th, and then SRI is in 12th place on 26 points. Then we got Hay on 22 points, Mitch on 14. Sorry, no, Mitch in 14th on 10 points. And then we got Fluffy Planet in 15th on 7, and Art Pal 16th on 0. And for the first time in this championship, we don't have any drivers on the same points, which is quite interesting. But what we do have is a bit of a gap forming up at the top, and then what looks like it may be a three-way battle for second at the moment, and with plenty still to fight for all the way down the order. Right, next up, as we mentioned, is Brands Hatch Indy, the short one. It'll be a bit frantic, that race, so make sure you come and join us for all of the action. As I mentioned earlier, feel free to check out the Dynamic GT League merch. Link is in the description, and custom items can be made, so feel free to get in touch with us if you want a particular image or slogan on the t-shirt or cup or anything that is available. Right, have a good one, everybody. Thanks for watching. Hit like, subscribe, you know the rest, and join us next week. Have a good one, everybody, and we'll see you all again soon.